Before we get to the matchup between Ford and Reagan, let's recap. Obviously, Ford came out on top at the last tournament against Clinton, and because Ford made a $9 billion tax cut, was reelected 12 times into the House of Representatives, and reinstated the CIA. Clinton was elected State Attorney General, revised the General Agreement of Tariffs and Trades, and pushed the North Atlantic Trade Company.
In the election between Nixon and Ford, Nixon, he came out on bottom, and he lost, mainly because of the Watergate scandal that he tried to cover up. But he didn't only do bad things, he also did good things. One thing was he cut the taxes of the U.S. In the election between Nixon and Ford, Nixon, he came out on bottom, and he lost, mainly because of the Watergate scandal that he tried to cover up. But he didn't only do bad things, he also did good things. One thing was he cut the taxes of the U.S. and he also adopted a money policy to control an overheating economy. And he also made the U.S. better friends with foreign countries. Now on Ford's side, he came into office with a straightforward plan to cut the deficit spending of the government and cut taxes, and he also formed the Tax Reformation Act, which mainly put him up on the top. But these are the three main actions he took that put him in the lead. He cared for the country probably a little more than Nixon did. On to you, Sarah and Sierra.
Okay, so we're going to the matchup between Reagan and Kennedy now. When Reagan came into office, he came in with a straightforward plan to cut taxes, curb government spending, and balance the federal budget. And we know how important that is. He also formed, just kidding. He also formed tax reformation. He also formed the Tax Reformation Act. It's pretty much the main keys that put him in the lead. Kennedy was an exceptional man. He was able to put the first man on the moon. But he was more into dealing with conflicts outside of the U.S. Though he did deal with some inside the U.S., like the missiles in Cuba.
Alright. Now the election between Johnson and Carter. Johnson was a presidential candidate in 1960. His presidency began and ended with a tragedy. The major initiative in the Lyndon Johnson presidency was the Vietnam War. The Johnson presidency marked a vast expansion in the role of national government affairs. On Jimmy Carter's side, Jimmy Carter successfully ran for office for the first time in 1995. Jimmy had a few foreign successes. Carter came to the White House determined to make human rights considerations integral to the U.S. foreign policy. To many people, Jimmy provided Americans with a post-presidential life, and most people consider him to be the nation's greatest president.
Alright, well, it's ending of the recap. So, right now we're going to go to the Reagan and Ford matchup, which is the one that we are currently on tonight. That is, well, Ford, he didn't do so great, I suppose. I mean, he joined the Navy. Ford joined the Navy to fight in World War II. And he left as a lieutenant commander in 1946. He had became vice president. He, as earlier stated, was reelected into the House of Representatives 12 times. It's pretty good. I mean, it's putting him up there, but obviously not high enough. He did cut taxes by $9 billion. And limited spending budgets for Congress. And he was generally familiar with the major international issue facing other countries. he managed politics for the Cold War. People liked him. I mean, he was a pretty cool guy. But he did bring up the Watergate, and he did not handle it correctly. But yeah, he was a decent good man. He brought honor to the White House and stuff.
Now, well, they both cut taxes, but honestly, I don't think Ford would have been able to do that if it wasn't for Reagan. Because Reagan, he had formed the Tax Reformation Act, which allowed people in presidency, to change the act, or not the act, but more so the taxes that were given to the citizens of each state. And he had a few personal accomplishments in life before presidency, but not many. He was widely known for taxes, but other than that, he was a transformational president. He was able to form a symbiotic relationship with Russian government Mikhail Gorbachev, which led to a peaceful resolution to the Cold War, which, of course, everybody wants peace. So.
Alright, so that puts Reagan out on top, right? Yeah. Reagan's out on top this time, so sorry, Ford. We'll see you next time. And the upcoming events that I don't know.
Who do you think will be in the finals?
Well, right now it's...
We already know Reagan's there, but...
Yeah, Reagan's there.
Who will be the next?
I do believe, or I hope, anyways, it's one of the Bushes. I mean, with all the spiraling downward crap Obama has pulled, I just hope it's one of the Bushes.
Yeah, I think it could be Bush Sr. Well, that's mainly because Obama beat George Bush already, George Bush Jr. He already beat him already, but George Bush Sr. did have more accomplishments and better outstanding than his own son. So, I think George Bush Sr. will come out on top.
How do you think the face-off, if Bush Sr. was to go into finals, how do you think the face-off between Reagan and Bush Sr. would go?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't really know much about George Bush Sr., but I think it would be an even match. I think it would be fair game. Whoever won would win square. Or will win square.